Welcome to the Darby Creek Diaries. I'm Gail Thompson, and today we're going to stitch up some Easter eggs and think of spring. These eggs are by Sandi MacIver for Spellbinders, and they're a whole lot of fun. So I'll explain it as we get in there. First off, we need to the die set. This die set is I was sent this, so I don't have the instructions and all the packaging. But basically, it has two sizes of eggs. So you're going to need that, and I also think a tool in one would be handy because those little felt pieces, those little dots are they get everywhere. I also used some pieces from the Bold Blooms by Spellbinders die set. It's not intended for felt, but it works just fine. I keep all the little extra pieces because I don't like to waste this felt. I keep it in a little baggie. It is a wool blend felt. And then there's just some stuffing that you can get at any craft store. So I got the little pieces die cut so we could just get started. I'm using embossing thread. I see now that the instructions say use 3 strands. Well, I couldn't tell from different pictures, but it looked like they used the whole strand. So I actually have all 6 strands, and it's like a 20 gauge, like 22 needle. I don't know because I don't keep them numbered. They were just all in a little container. And so I'm just going to do a running stitch for all the little pieces. Now, there's 2 ways you can go about this. You could definitely sew everything onto the felt and and stitch on the felt, make designs, do all that. You would definitely do that before you started sewing it together. You would not want to try to do it once it's sewn together. Uh, and now I'm running that running stitch back down. So all it is skipping a stitch and going up one side, down the other. Super, super easy. And I just think that this is the easiest way. And then instead of having extra bulk on the egg part while we're stitching, I think it's just easier to glue this on at the end. So I'm just going to snip this off as close as I can, and then I'm going to take some glue. Now this just happens to be fabric glue, but I would definitely use a needle nosed uh, glue bottle, and any kind of glue would work. This is okay to wash it. It just happens to be fabric glue. And I'm going to set that aside. Then I decided that I could probably just run this running stitch, just thread through all of the holes at once. So that's a quick way to do it. Boom. And then you just run it back the opposite way here in a second. Once I get my thread untangled, that is the one thing that is the problem because you don't tie a knot at the end. So it just everything kind of can slip right through. So I'm trying to keep it this and keep it really loose because this felt is it's a wool blend. It's a little tougher than the craft stuff that you would get at a Michael's or someplace, but it is still very, very fragile. So you want to be very gentle with your stitches. Now I'm just running it back the opposite way, only I chickened out on trying to do them all in one go. I think I could, but I didn't do it. I hope you're doing well. Spring, if you're in North America, spring is almost here. And I sat and made a bunch of these during the Olympics. It's something you can watch, but not watch every second because they replay the best parts. So now we're going to put the egg together itself. The easiest way to do it, you can clip it if you want. I know people that do. I kind of think it gets in the way, so I typically don't. I'm making sure I have all my holes cleared and that I can see through all of them. I'm going to run that first stitch up underneath the first angled stitch. You don't want to hit the bottom stitches. That's for the little square up on the right. And then you leave a little tail that you can hang on to on the inside so that we'll be able to tie it off later. And see, you want to still be able to see daylight through all your stitches. And then we're going to do the running stitch, and it's going to be just up one and down the next. The thread I'm using isn't DMC floss because I thought this looked nicer. It's probably 15 years old, and it's a brand I got from a knit shop that was going out of business, so I just bought a bunch of their floss, and it came in pre-cut lengths. So I'm always afraid I'll run out, so I do pretty long, um, lengths of thread when I cross stitch or sew. So I'm just going up and down every other one, and it's super easy. I'm only gonna do this one the whole way. I wouldn't bore you by doing every single side, but I wanna show you how we get, everything going. See, it's just every other hole. Super quick, not quite mindless. You can get in trouble if you're not kinda paying attention on some things. And then I'm running it up through the tip and back through, and then just heading down the other side. Yeah, I made, oh, I don't know, 7 or 8 eggs. Oh, in just a few days. I'm like, "Ooh, I wanna try it in this color and this color." So, I did. Sometimes I used contrasting thread, which means you have to have your stitches pretty nice, or you can use thread that matches your felt. I just used felt that I already had, from various places, but Spellbinders does carry some really nice felt, and I'm just showing you the stitches there. So now we're getting to the end. So I'm only going to go through the top layer when I get to this angled stitch. So see, there's going to be one hole left, and I don't want to take it through the whole thing. So I'm going to run it through. Now you can see it's all finished. And then we're going to just go ahead and trim off the excess. And then I'm going to go ahead and knot it. The corners on this do get stressed, especially if you stuff it tightly, which this one I wound up not stuffing tight enough probably. But so I tied the knot, and then I'm just going to put the excess on the inside, and then we're going to go with our next side. These are four-sided eggs. The bottom's flat because they were designed to sit on tiered trays or just to be able to sit on things and be able to stand up. So now I'm going through that first angle corner again, tucking in that excess so I can keep a hold of it, making sure that I can see daylight through all the holes. And now I'm just going to go ahead and run that running stitch up to the side, and I decide to clip it this time just for because I want to make sure the tip I have it all evened up nicely. And we skipped ahead and I got up to the top, and I'm going to just poke through that top one, and then you can go back through and hit the other one because the top it's important to make sure that that's sewn completely shut. And now I'm just going to continue on doing the running stitch, and now I'm done. So we're going to go through that last one and just bring it through underneath, and we're going to trim it off and tie a knot, and we'll be ready to get going for our next one. I made 2 knots on the ends. You don't wanna be too tight because 'cause you'll tear those little holes, and I'm just gonna stick in that excess, and we're gonna go and do our last side. Same same as usual. And in case you aren't aware, Easter is early this year. I think it is April the 8th. I don't know. I'm going to look here on my phone. So once again, I went up through that corner underneath, and I'm going to do that running stitch while I'm looking at my calendar to see when Easter is. Oh, this calendar doesn't. Oh, it isn't April the 8th. It's April the 5th. I'm pretty sure it's the 5th. I will put it on the screen when I find out because I'm trying to do the voiceover for this too. So now we have all the loose sides attached. And now it's time to go to finish it off and have our complete egg except for the bottom. So back in that bottom on that diagonal, the first diagonal stitch, and then same thing. Yeah, and I want to pull that thread through more of the needle so it doesn't get all hung up because look, if you're not careful, it does. This is a really pretty thread. It's a uh, an ombre. It isn't quite the same color, but it has it has the tones in it. Now we're getting up to this point of the egg, and so I want to make sure that I get it in there and very secure. I don't want stuffing sticking out, and I don't want it to come undone. Not that they're going to see a lot of wear and tear, but see, I'm folding back the egg and sticking it in, and then I'm going to go ahead and stick it right through the center of the top. Then I'm going to run it back through. It's not against the law to have a double stitch in a hole as long as you are, discreet about it, and that will give it some extra strength. So I flatten it out and I go ahead and I run it directly across to the section that's across, and then I just double check that everybody's secure. And now we're going to do the running stitch back to the bottom. There we go. Now we're down to that last stitch. So I'm going to flip it over and just run it to the inside, trim it off, and knot it. Now we're going to get this nice and secure for the last time. I think I actually wind up, there we go. I guess I didn't put in a third one. That's coming later. So there is our egg, and you can kind of straighten up any stitches that wound up a little wonky. But now we're going to put on the bottom, and the bottom is where it gets a smidge tricky. It's really easy to get confused as to uh, what's a corner on the bottom, and it doesn't look like it. Okay, so the first thing you do is just come up through that corner bottom and leave a tail, and then you're going to come up and back. You're going to do a running stitch, but you're going to hold that other thread out of the way. It's the corners that you want to kind of be careful on here. And you just want to make sure that you've got 8 stitches. So you just make sure that you keep counting because it's super easy to wind up with extra either egg or extra square on the bottom. And I've had that happen and I've had to tear it out. Now, this first corner, I don't do a fabulous job of showing you how, but I do much better on the other 3, so I just went ahead and left it in. So you could see that I'm taking it up through the stitch that is on the side of the egg, that diagonal one that we started in on each side. I took it up there and then I brought it back through the one down to the left, and I'm going to go ahead and then I'm going to run that stitch through. So just hang with me. It'll get easier to see in a minute. So I'm doing that running stitch, keeping everything kind of sorted. and we're just going to go up to the corner. And this time you'll be able to see better. Yes, smash it, and then you bring that stitch through. You can always do, like I said, one extra stitch, but I just brought it through the inside. Before we do anything else, we need to get the stuffing in because you'd have too little of a hole if you did 3 edges. And so I'm kind of fluffing up just your garden variety pillow fluff. I have a huge bag of it. I don't even know how many years old it is. And I'm stuffing it down into the front. And I was always afraid of overstuffing them because then it's super hard to sew your bottom in. So this one I didn't get quite as full as I would have liked, but it still looks okay. It's just, I would have put a little more stuffing in. So when you get it to the point where you think, okay, it's going to get hard to make my stitches because you still have to match up those holes. So you want to be careful. So I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to run it back through that angle, that stitch on the corner. I'm going to run it through and bring it up through the other side. And that helps really reinforce that corner. And then I'm going to make sure I have everything else lined up. And then we're going to continue that running stitch. And once we're done with this running stitch all the way around, we're going to go back in reverse and fill in all the extra holes since we're only coming up and down every other one. But you got to really hang on to it. And I don't see any real way of using a clip there. So you just have to kind of squeeze it with your fingers. So now we're in the corner again. So I'm going to take that corner and I'm going to run it through and then fold, well, not fold, press those two sides together. And then I'm going to stick a stitch here angled. It's been a minute since I made this video, so I have to watch it while I'm doing my voiceover. So I've got that corner diagonal hole filled, making sure. There we go. I got it. You got to count those holes. It's crucial. And you don't want anything too tight because those little holes will just pull out. And then you have to die cut a new piece. So as you can see, I've got it handled and we're going to go through our final edge of our square. And there we go. We're going to go up that diagonal and across. And then we're going to bring it back down through the corner hole, which you're definitely allowed to have a double stitch. And now we're just going to go through and fill it in. now approaching the final corner, and I'm just going to stick a couple of insurance sticks. You can stick it in between the felt too. Don't all, and I did. I stuck it there through the felt, and now I'm tying it off. And this is the time that I tied it off with 3, just for good measure. I looked at it and I'm like, well, one more won't hurt. I'm gonna be pitching this thread anyway. Oh, I guess no, that's when I decide to do it. There we go. Now we're gonna trim it off as close as you can because we're gonna get our fabric glue, which fortunately dries matte. You can kind of tuck those in a little bit. And then I'm just going to put a little dibby dab of glue there in the corner. You'll never know it's there. And I kind of poke the threads down into it. Probably not the best thing to do with the needle, but it's water soluble. So there's the egg. I see it isn't quite as full as I'd want it to be, but you know, it's art. It's not perfection. So I just wanted to show you how I made the daffodil. You just cut 2 of those pieces and offset them. And then the little interior part, the stamens, you go ahead and just add a little bit of glue to the bottom and the top there. And you gently roll it. And then you're just going to want to hold it together. You don't want to clip it because it'll turn flat. So you just, in order to keep it round, you just sort of let it have a second to dry. And then, you know what? The white part, I picked just junk felt, so that's why the colors are weird. But those are actually the pistils. The stamens would be this. Stamens are on the outside. So you're going to roll it up around like like a sausage roll or a hot dog roll, and go ahead and hold this. And this looks kind of weird. It looks much better in the yellow, which is the one we're going to wind up using. This was just to give you an idea. And I really suggest using a needle tip glue bottle. It makes it much easier. And I had glue all over my fingers, so that didn't help. You try to sit something down and it stays stuck. Then you just put a blob of glue in the center, and there is your very odd looking daffodil. Or as when I was a kid, I thought they were called daffodils. So now it's time to decorate our egg. I'm only going to decorate one side today. So the first thing I'm going to do is glue down the stem. And this is, of course, where the needle tip bottle would have really come in handy because I was getting glue about everywhere. And I just wanted to center it at the bottom of the egg. And then I'm just going to attach the leaves, and I'm going to decide which goes on which side. I think they're supposed to sort of maybe point out, but you know what? I don't know that it really matters. I just want to set them on there so I have an idea of where I want them. And I kind of actually make sure I have an extra little dibby dab of glue on that end that I knotted, and I trimmed the thread as close as I could so there wouldn't be a big lump. And now we're just going to place that down. Next, we're going to finish off. Well, I'm going to trim around that knot a little better and then get more glue on my fingers. And it did make it pretty hard. And I decided let's use tweezers. So now I have glue on the tips of my tweezers too. There we go. And I wanted to move. There was a little bit of thread sticking out. So I did that and then I tapped it all down. and wanted everybody to match, and that felt stretches just a little bit, and I still wasn't happy, so I'm wiping the glue off, and I picked that up, and I just wanted it touching. Now I'm going to put a glop of glue on top and place our daffodil. So there is our cute little egg. It's just so fun. And they really are addicting to make, and there's so many different flowers. I like I said, I went nuts here. I wanted some pastel ones, then I decided, "Oh, I'll do bold one just to see." You don't have to have all the sides the same color. You don't even have to finish all the sides truly. Um, and then I just did some simple ones with stars. And then there's our one from today, and I'm just getting it sort of arranged for you, but I wanted to show you this one. I thought, "Oh, I'll make a Fabergé egg." And I used gold DMC. That is the worst, nastiest thread to work with. So I'll finish it, but it wasn't fun. I hope you enjoyed this and that you'll like and subscribe and have a happy Easter and come back and see me. I'm going to get inky real soon. And until then, here are some playlists that you can look at until I'm back. Bye bye.